Thank you, Mr. President. And whilst I can, I'm not that great at maths, I obviously can do the numbers in this place to work out where we're landing today in terms of this inquiry. But I do have, and I thank all honourable members, of course, for their contributions today. Yesterday it was the Honourable Russell Wortley's turn at selling the bad news on behalf of the Treasurer. Today, the Honourable Tung No has been given that pleasure. And I say today to the Honourable Tung No, just like I did yesterday to the Honourable Russell Wortley, what an absolute load of rubbish. What we've said today is an absolute crock. Yet again, I'd love to know how creative the Treasurer is actually getting with these speeches and these contributions that he's preparing for his members over here. And if he has any pity on the fact that you guys actually have to sit here with a straight face and deliver the rubbish that is being delivered in this place, because that is precisely what it is. It is an absolute crock. If I could, and I will in fact breach every protocol that exists in this place and say this: next time the Treasurer says to me, find me $1.7 billion and I'll get rid of payroll tax, because that is the sentiment that the Treasurer has about payroll tax, just like he has about land tax and just like he has about gambling tax, because what we know is that this government has an addiction to unexpected windfall gains that they are reaping the benefits of. They are lining their coffers so they can go on their magical spending sprees at the expenses of business in this state, and that is precisely why the Treasurer doesn't want to front up and have these discussions. The Treasurer knows precisely what the concerns around payroll tax are. He knows precisely what's wrong with the thresholds that apply. He knows precisely what's wrong with the rates that apply. He knows about the creep effect. He doesn't have a solution because he is looking forward to all that extra cash that was unanticipated, and he's sending his members in this place with some fluff, and I don't know what it is, I don't know what to refer to it as, and try to sell us a story that there is no problem here to see in South Australia. Well, you can go and speak to any business in the state that is impacted by payroll tax, and they will tell you that that is an absolute crock. And just to pick up on one of the points that was made by the Honourable Tung No, because it appears, and the Honourable Rob Sims, I'm coming to you in a sec over health workers, but it appears that I apologise, Mr. President. It appears that there's nothing in this committee process, and I will say this at the outset. I'm a very patient person, and I'm happy for committees to wrap up before this one takes off, if that was the issue in terms of not supporting this inquiry. I've sat on another committee quite patiently and waited for the workload, and that's the Gambling Tax Committee. I've waited quite patiently for the workload of this place to ease when it comes to committees before taking that one, before the online, that one, before proceeding with that one. And I would have been quite willing to do the same on this one. But if we're going, this committee was not limited to healthcare workers, and it certainly was not limited to general practitioners and the medical fraternity. I find it interesting that the Honourable Tung No, on behalf of the Treasurer, would say that GPs got it wrong, because it would appear that optometrists got it wrong, dentists got it wrong, surgeons got it wrong, physios got it wrong, chiros got it wrong. Every single allied health professional in the state got the wrong accounting advice when it came to payroll tax. They all got it wrong. And not only that, it appears that every hotel, every bed and breakfast, every pub and club also got it wrong when it comes to the issues around payroll tax, because they're all having the same arguments with the Treasurer that the doctors are having. So this wasn't limited to doctors. This wasn't limited to what we discussed yesterday in the very good motions that got through this place. This was a systemic review of payroll tax and the impact that it has on this state. $1.7 billion a year, $5 million a day, 1.97% at $1.97 billion in forward estimates, and growing as a result of determinations that the Treasurer knows will see that number increase and line his coffers with. That's what this motion was about. And on top of that, Mr. President, the other important point is, and this South Australian Business Chamber has made this point well, those groups have asked for some meaningful dialogue with the government about payroll tax. They accept that they have payroll, they don't know why, but they accept that there's a payroll tax that's payable in this state. What they've said to the government is, engage with us and let's look at the incentives that operate in other states and see how we can put those into place here in South Australia. And the Treasurer's response to them has been not interested. We have this creep, so more and more businesses are creeping into the payroll tax liability, and it is undermining and diminishing the impacts that the opposition made when they were in government. They're becoming ineffective. The Treasurer knows that. He absolutely knows that, but he doesn't care because the money that they're getting that they never anticipated is too much of an addiction to do anything about. That's the reality. Those other jurisdictions that the Honourable Tung No talks about do have incentives, and that is precisely what industries have been asking. They've got incentives. Victoria has a 50% reduction for all its regions when it comes to payroll tax. The Honourable Tung No, through you, Mr. President, 50% reduction is what they offer in Victoria. And guess what the South Australian Business Chamber of Commerce have asked for? They've said, why don't we look at what Victoria does? Because in Victoria, the net impact of that 50% reduction has been something like $80 million on their budget. But that $80 million has resulted in business growth, more jobs, higher employment, and better economic activity. So an $80 million loss has actually served those regions really well. But the Treasurer doesn't think, unlike the South Australian Chamber of Commerce, doesn't think that those sorts of considerations are worth having here. Now, I did, Mr. President, it's not often that I have a crack at my colleague opposite, the Honourable Mr. Sims, and I know that there have been committees of his that I haven't supported, but I have to make the point that this was not limited to healthcare workers, and I think the Honourable Robert Sims might find that the hospitality venues that he so passionately voices his love for in this place might disagree with his stance on payroll tax today. Because I'm interested to understand how it is that we expect live music venues to continue if they have to climb over a payroll tax mountain first. How we expect these employers to faithfully restore heritage buildings when we have to climb over a payroll tax mountain first. I'd love to know that. And I am quite surprised, I can't do this with a straight face because it's the Honourable Rob Sims that appears, but I am quite surprised that we aren't interested in exploring those options and those incentives and those exemptions for those regions. And just because I happen to have it in front of me, I want to refresh the Honourable Member's memory for the benefit of those who weren't here at the time. The former member of this place, the Honourable Frank Pangallo, said this about payroll tax. He said tax is a very useful tool for encouraging things that we want more of and for discouraging things we want less of. And I'm putting it in very simple terms, but I am sure that I'm not the only person who has in economics. Lectures at university, pondered the question about why we tax something we want more of, like employment, and yet we fail to tax things that we want less of, like pollution, particularly when you consider that pollution has reached levels where it is changing the very climate of the planet. We accept that other factors come into play in relation to the choices of a tax base and how broad or narrow it should be. We have to take into account the ease of measurement and collection. But the way the Greens look at it is that should not overshadow the broader economic, social and environmental objectives of taxation revenue, which in relation to payroll tax should include not creating a barrier to further employment. And that is one of the issues that every business group who has asked for this inquiry has asked us to look at, and what the incentives are around those. Mr. President, I'm not going to keep us here all night because I know it's Thursday, but I am a very patient person. I'm a very, very patient person. And so my message once again, through the Honourable Tung No and through you, Mr. President, to the Treasurer is that you can look forward to the reintroduction of another motion in the next fortnight of Parliament. And you can look forward to a campaign, the likes of which you have not contemplated well by not engaging in meaningful dialogue with those industries who are calling for this inquiry. You have underestimated how impactful this is on them and the lengths that they are willing to go to, and I'm willing to go to on their behalf with their blessing, to get you to sit and engage with them over some payroll tax reforms. And of course, a committee would have served that purpose well. But again, there is more than one way to skin a cat. And if the Treasurer thinks that not having a payroll tax inquiry is going to save him from the campaigns that are mounting against him on payroll tax, then he has another thing coming, because there's only so much froth and bubble that he can come and try to bamboozle us with in here before those industries get really angry and they start going really public about their concerns. And that is precisely where the Treasurer finds himself today. So I am a patient person. I will come back here with another motion, but I also remind the Treasurer that there's a health committee in this place, and they'd be more than willing to consider hearing from doctors, dentists, physios, chiros, optometrists, the list goes on, about the impacts that payroll tax is having on them. So we can do this one way or the other. The Treasurer can engage, or he can expect an absolute barrage of campaigning against him unless and until he decides to take those industries seriously and consider what they're asking for. Mr. President, I've made my commitment to those businesses, just like I know the opposition and other members have, and I know the Honourable Rob Simpson has made to the GPs and independent GPs. And I intend to pursue that with as much vigour as it takes to drag our Treasurer along to engage in those meaningful discussions concerning changes that they so rightly deserve. And I know that I will be in good company with the SA Business Chamber of Commerce, with the likes of the Property Council, with the hoteliers, with the agriculture industries, with seafood industries, with allied health, with restaurants. The list goes on. And I intend to do everything in here to air those concerns on behalf of those groups for the benefit of the Treasurer, so that next time he puts a contribution together for a member in this place, it has some semblance of truth attached to it.